In this video I'm reassembling a Honda 50 C100 engine from the 1960s. So I'm just going to put on these oil seals, one here and one here, and they're 1734/7s. And behind here I have to put in a 6302 6203 bearing must go in there at the other side. So I'm going to put on these two. I must actually change this one here as well. I'll have to check what it is just to be on the safe side. And this one is 11.6 by 24 by 10. So that's the three of those oil seals in place. I must now put in the bearing. Now that's the bearing in place. Now I'm after putting on the bearing 6203 and a 6303, and I put back on the sprocket, and there's no play in this one. I have a second one, but there's a lot of play in it. So I can't use it. This one there's no play at all in it. So I can put it in there now. Like so. I'd have to get a bucket, because a bucket is the best way to put these things together, to straddle it over a bucket so that nothing is getting caught. You can't really do it on a bench. So that's it now, sitting on the bucket. The next thing to do now is to put in the gears, the main gear system, and there. There's another piece of it somewhere else, but I'll tackle all that now tomorrow, because it's gone too dark here and I'm working just in the shed with light, and it's easier to do it during the day. Now I've just installed the whole gear mechanism, and I've put a washer here and here just to be on the safe side. I'm going to check the other casing there now, put it over it to see that there's no up and down play. Right, I've just put on the other casing there temporarily to see that there's no play, which there isn't. There will be play on that anyway, but there's no play here and here that I can find, so I can take that off again now and put in the kickstarter, which is here. This is one that I had off another engine, even though the part is after coming for it, but I'll just put this one into this engine. Right, so this is the kickstarter. I must take off this circlip, this washer, the spring, and that washer before I put it on, because the other casing won't go down. These are actually above the other casing, so there's a washer on the bottom of it there that has to go on there, like so. So I'll just take off those. So this is it going in, and this little piece here goes into that hole there, like so. The washer is after moving. Right, that's that. Now I must check. This washer may go in here now, but I actually don't think it does. I'll have to put the casing back onto it again. This casing here, just to check. With the casing on, and this washer actually goes in there. So I can put the casing back down on it now, I think. I just have to double check and see if I need a washer there. Right, I've put in 2 very thin washers there that were actually stuck to this part of it here. So now I'm putting on this side here, again just to check for play. I'll get it all down together there now and I'll just check it for play. Right, there's no visible play, ever so slight here, but I think that should be okay, because when the spring goes on it'll tighten it up. Right, this is a C100E gasket kit. So I'm just going to put on the gasket. I'm not going to put on silicone sealant with it, which I would normally do. I'm not going to do that on this occasion. Now, before I put the 2 sides together, I think I have to put in this next. This is what the push rod pushes the push rod when the conrod unit, I think this is called the conrod unit, and I need to put the other one in here. They definitely have to be put in at this stage, because when the casing goes on there's no way of getting them on, as far as I can see anyway. Right, that's that one and that's that one. So now I can put the 2 casings together, and I won't put the silicone on it, because in case there's anything wrong then I'll have to take it off again. Now, just looking at it as I have the casing on, it does look as if maybe you could get those 2 in there, but I think it's better to do them before you put it together. This piece goes down in there like that, so I'll just have to put some screws on the casing there now to hold it in place. Now I've turned it over there and I'm going to install the bolts. 6, 7, there's at least 8 or 9 of them. Now I'm just screwing in. These are the original bolts that came off, and I managed to get them off without damaging the head, so I'm reusing them. So I'll tighten all 9 of those down there now. That's all 9 bolts in position. Now I can put in this bolt with the washer, which holds the main gear changing mechanism in place, and I'll just tighten down that there with a 10mm socket. Now there's a little rubber cap that goes on. I've put a small bit of silicone on it to get it to stay ever so slightly loose, so I don't want it falling out. That covers that. So the next thing to do is to put on this spring on the kickstarter, and I have to prise the spring over that there with a screwdriver. Now that's the spring in place, and the next piece is this washer that goes on there, and then there's a circlip goes on there. Okay. Next thing to put in is the gear change mechanism. I think there's a washer here, but I'm not sure. I can always take it off again if there isn't. So the spring has to go down in between that. I'd have to give it a tap to get it to go down. Okay, it appears as if the washer was required. This is just sitting correctly there in underneath this now. The next thing to do is to put in the pins here. And there are two small pins at the start. They're short little pins. And then there are three big ones. Right. I'm just checking to see that it's turning, which it is. Right. To stop these from falling out, there's a cap with a screw and a washer on it that goes on there. Now there's another mechanism that goes on there, which I must get out of the bag. This is the spring on this, and it goes over that. And then there's a special bolt so that there's a section on it there so that this will move backwards and forwards. So I just got to get the spring onto it there now before I finally tighten it down to the bottom. So I've got the spring onto it, it's holding there, the bolt is going down, and this must touch off of these little pins here. So I'm going to tighten that down now fully. So that's it tightened down now, and you can see that it actually moves. It has to move. Should move a small bit freer than that. I'll put a bit of oil on it. So I'm after putting some oil on it there, and it's moving a bit better, and then this cap goes over it, as I say, to stop the pins from coming out. Next thing to install now is this main gear, and I must put on a little circlip there to hold it in place. Now I'm after putting in this wheel here, and I've noticed that there's a 0 on it, and there should be a 0 on this wheel here, which is the piston would be at the top dead center, is what I'm assuming. I changed this because I put new bearings on, and I turned it upside down when I put it on, but it doesn't matter. But what I'm missing is the O. As you can see, the O is there, so they must line up. So I'm pretty sure that when it's at top dead center, it's lining up. Right, so that's that. The next piece to put on is this piece here that goes on there, and the next thing to do is to put on the clutch. And there's a little cup that goes on there, like so. Right, the next piece to put in there is this lock washer. There's pieces here that stick down, that go into the grooves down below on the spline itself. We didn't know about a while ago, of course. Right, that's it down in place. And now there's a special nut that goes on, and there's a special unit for put it in place. I must get that now. This is a special tool. This side is for the Honda C50 and this is for the C100. And to make sure it's threading on correctly. The little splines on the other thing will stop it from going down, so I just have to adjust them ever so slightly. I've tightened it up fully there now, and the little, what you call it, the little pieces sticking out on the special washer that's underneath, I must put one of the tabs back into the nut itself to stop it from opening. So I've got one of them into it there now, this one here, then the other one's into it. Okay, the next thing to go on now is this little cup, and into that goes a 6000 bearing. And into that then this special fitting goes in like that, and there's a spring goes on top of it like that, and this piece goes on here, like so, and the spring goes on there. Now the next thing to do is to put on the other casing. The casing that was on this engine when I got it was damaged. There's a crack on it. So I had another engine, part of another engine, so this is the casing off of it. Right. I just get that down. Oh, I must put on the gasket. And inside the casing there's a small spring. There it is, and that actually sits on that there. It sits just about there, I presume, to stop that from rattling around. And those three balls that are on the end of that, then they sit in there into that. So again, I'm dry fitting it just in case that there's anything wrong. I'm not putting any I'm not putting any gasket sealant with it, so I just need to tap it down ever so slightly. There it goes. Now I can put the screws. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 of them again. I must put on them now. They're shorter ones at this side. The clutch casing installed, and I'm just going to install this oil dipstick. They're slightly different in the Honda 50 C100. They're normally metal like this, and in the Honda C50 they're more often than not they're plastic. So that's that, and let's put on the nut for adjusting the clutch there. So I put in the nine bolts all around. Next thing to do now is to put on the piston and all the head section here. Now I'm putting on the piston, and the arrow points downward, and I have the pin installed, and I'm just after putting some cloth there on the engine to stop the circlip from flying in there. I must put on the second circlip there now. Managed to get the second circlip on there now, so I can start to put the rest of the head section together. So this is the first one, and there's going to be gaskets required on that, so I must go and find them. Now I have that gasket installed there, and I'm installing this head down on top of it next, which will go on like that, and I must get the piston to come up through the barrel. Right, I got the piston into it there, and it's down in place. Right, the next section to install will be this section here, and that requires a gasket. That gasket is for the last piece that goes on, which is at this side. There's actually no gasket on this. There's a copper thing that came off in the new one. It was just aluminium. There's 2 rubber washers that go in there. I'm using the original ones. The ones that came in the pack are like that, and the other one is like that, but this one has a little bit of metal on it, and it's still in good condition, so I'm reusing it. There's obviously a bolt goes through there, I think. Right, so that's that, and I've got to keep this in place now when I'm putting it on. Right, I put a small bit of Durco onto it to hold it in place there on that, because it was falling off. So the exhaust must be down. Right, that's that, and the whole thing is collapsing in me. Now I've got to put on 4 nuts on here, and tighten them up. So I'll tighten them up, and the push rods themselves go in there. The big one goes at this side and the small one at the other side. Now I must double check that on my video of when I was dismantling it, but I think the big one is at this side and the small one is at the other side. I'll just check it. Right, I was correct. The long one goes at this side, the short one at the other side. So I must tighten up these 4 bolts and then I can put the valves back in. I have them all inside in the bag there, so I have to put that together before I can continue. Right, so I'm putting in one of the valves. It goes in like so, and this pin goes through this hole here and holds it in place. Goes all the way through, and then there's a nut that must be put on over it, and it'll be the same for the other one. Now I think I have to put these springs on somewhere as well, so I'll have to go back to my video to see where they go. I can't see it on the part list, so I'll have to go back to my video. So the spring goes on there at the side of the valve, and then you push the pin in. That's the pin there, and you must put a bolt on to hold it in place. And the reason for the springs is to have, there's a slight bit of flexibility in the thing. Okay, right, I must tighten up the nuts and put on the gasket. And put it into place. Right, put this piece on now. I turned that the right way around. It would be something. Right, from, I can't remember which is which. I think these are the bottom ones and these are the top ones, but again I'll have to go back to the video to check it. There's 2 ordinary bolts and 2 special ones with the nut attached there. I don't know if it's actually welded to it or not, not sure. It wasn't going on properly, so I went back to the video and I found that the spring should be on the right hand side here and the left hand side here. The left hand side of the big one, right hand side of the small one. So I'll put it on now and see if it fits this time. Okay, it's all bolted on there now. The 2 small bolts went on top and along with the kind of a bolt halfway, well, 1/3 of the way down, and then I put on those things that were on there with the 2 nuts outside them. I don't know what they're for, but I'll just put them on anyway and tighten them up when they were on it originally. So I must change the rubbers on these valve covers. I'll set the valves later on. And the next thing to put on is the oil pipe. So I'll put on the valve rubbers first. Right, that's the 2 new rubbers installed. I won't tighten it up now because I must fix the valves later on. Right, the oil pipe is next. Right, this is the oil pipe and it goes on here. There are two bolts, one is longer than the other. I assume the short one is for up here. Yeah, I think it probably is. So I'll put the pipe on with the short one on top and the other one going into the engine. So that's the oil pipe in position there now. The long bolt goes there and the short one on that side there. So I have to put in the electrical unit now next. This is the electrical unit. And it goes on there, held in place with two screws. I'm just after installing the woodruff key there, and now I'm going to put on the rotor itself. That's the rotor in position. Next thing to do now is to put on the sprocket. Now that's the sprocket on, and then I must put on this lock washer. It's a special washer, and you have to turn it so that in this position it can come out, but when you turn it, it locks underneath there all around and it can't come out, and then you put on the two bolts. It's the sprocket fitted, and the last thing to put on is this breather pipe. It goes on there. I don't exactly know what the purpose of it is, but it goes on there anyway and goes down like that. That's the way it was when I got it. You can clip it in there if you want to, but it doesn't matter. So the only other thing to put on there now is the casings. I'm not sure if I actually have the casings for this one, but I'll have a look in the spare parts that I have. So the only other thing to do now is to set the valves, as far as I know, because I think that I have everything done correctly internally, but I mightn't have. I'm not an expert, so I will be taking this to get someone to try and start it for me to make sure that it's correctly done. Honda 50 C100 engine. Honda 50 C100 engine completed.